Alright, today we are going to look at TI versus C9 in the LCS. And the reason we are going to look at this match is because I saw a lot of people just solely blame the loss for C9 on the draft, or saying things like, C9, they just did nothing and lose. But actually, it was quite fantastic how TL played this game. Their macro gameplay was really unique, the way they constantly lane swapped, and then the way they used their tempo in this match. It was really well done. I think it was some of the best macro gameplay I've seen all season long, including LPL and LCK. So I think it's worth a look. First in this video we are going to look at how they did all of this and what conditions had to be met. And then we look at what C9 maybe could have done slightly different in-game at least. Of course, maybe drafting just some hard engage as last pick would have been an easier solution, but yeah, that didn't happen. So let's get straight into it. Okay, so it all kind of starts here, and first we have to think about why does TL even want to lane swap. So I would say it's mainly because if you look at C9's team comp, they want to snowball the game through Lucian and Milio, they kind of want to accelerate the game through them and then kind of also progress the game through them. So this is kind of their strong point in their team, at least early. And meanwhile, what TL wants, they want to safely scale up with their Aphelios Lulu, which has great scaling, and then get to the late game. So the way, if you have a losing matchup in either bot or top, the way you can kind of avoid it is through lane swaps. So this is kind of the easiest way to do it. But then you might ask yourself, okay, if it's that easy and let's say I have a losing bot lane, a losing top lane in a game, but they scale better, I just lane swap every game. Why does it not happen more often? Well, the reason is, usually it's a bit difficult to get the right conditions for it. So usually the thing is, if you have a losing lane, you don't really have control over when you recall, because the other team is pushing you in and has complete control on when they want to reset, and then you kind of just follow that. But in this game it's a bit different. Like sometimes you have the situations, but it's mostly when the wave bounces back. The problem is you don't have the situations on both lanes, on both side lanes at the same time very often. And the reason it works here is right now basically mainly because of the Udyr. The Udyr is kind of unique in this case. So he is really easy. He has a really easy time to kind of control when he wants to reset because of his strength in proxy farming. So we can see if we go back a little bit, he's already proxying right now, and basically he could also already reset after this wave. But because he's Udyr, he can just keep doing that quite a long time this early in the game, which is not many champs can do it. So he can wait until the wave for his bot lane bounces back into C9, so they have actually a reset timer, and then he can sync up with them and reset at the same time. And then they are both back at the base at the same time. So these are the kind of conditions you need for all of this. And this is really unique, I think. When I think about what champs can do this besides Udyr, maybe Singed. I think Singed would be a pick that could also do the same thing, where they kind of do this. And you can already see, since he recalls right now and then also basically he is going to move bot lane quite quickly, it's all planned out by them. It's really smart by them. So they got their base, and Udyr also got their base, and when you base like this from a proxy farm, you have a huge lead when it comes to the tempo of the game, because the wave still has to clear the wave here, and then the next wave is coming. So it's just yeah, it feels shitty if you play top lane against this kind of strategy. And now we see they are so far ahead in tempo already through this. They are so far ahead. Udyr is already here, Lucian still in base, Na is still clearing minions, and his bot lane is basically already on their move. Lulu has even time to like make a quick detour mid lane to see what's happening. So already a massive advantage for TL in this situation. And now, if you look at the map, we see, oh, Lucian sees this, oh no, we don't want this, we want to keep our 2v2 lane and kind of play through that. So Lucian decides now to go top lane and now resets. And Milio, after walking all this way bot lane, probably looking like, oh, where's the enemy bot lane? He now has to reset again, basically wasting his whole time going bot lane, clearing like 2 minions and then resetting again and then going top lane. It's really crazy the kind of tempo they wasted from all of this. And now the wave is already pushed in again on both sides, because you're way slower from the initial play already. So they reset again to avoid the matchup again, and they basically don't lane at this point. They don't lane, they push wave, they recall, they push a wave, they recall, and they kind of recycle their tempo through this because their tempo lead doesn't really go away like this. Really, because C9 wants to keep or kind of preserve the normal 2v2 and 1v1 lanes. So really great gameplay by them so far. And now this all really syncs up really well with their Lee Sin, who basically did the grabs like 1 minute earlier and now reset to get together with his bot lane, the Dragon. So it's just really clean macro gameplay by them. And now what does C9 do? They think maybe, okay, maybe they could go for a plate here, I don't know. It's Udyr, he can clear waves pretty efficiently. It's not really easy. So they try to swap again back and kind of get their lane back. And this is just a huge waste of time for C9 because they don't achieve anything like that. We will go later. We will go over what they maybe could have done differently here. I think this is also it doesn't help C9 to play like this, I think. But it's kind of forced by TL. It's kind of forced. And now they have the city, so they got the Dragon, and I hope we get the normal mech back really soon. Yeah, and now we have the situation where it's a 3v2 bot lane basically, because after the Dragon, Lee Sin is going to go for the bot lane camps, and it's kind of a split map. So Lilia goes for the top side, and then maybe she can do something top, probably unrealistic against Udyr. Meanwhile, the bot lane can really safely farm again, because they're 3v2. Also, if you notice, Ziggs is always hovering bot side. He's always hovering bot side, so he doesn't get ganked by Lilia, and also he can join a play quite quickly like that if something happens. And maybe they could decide to like dive the bot lane or do something like that. So really good gameplay by them. They are all really in sync. And yeah, Ziggs is just a champ you can't really move as Orianna as well, so she doesn't really have much control here. And now we see, if you look at the state of the game, what's going to happen next? Well, grubs are spawning again. So what does their bot lane do? Because they could freely push all the time because Lee Sin was bot, so basically C9 can't engage 2v2 because Lee Sin is just there in 5 seconds. They can get another free reset. And what do? They avoid the lane again, and they go top lane. And they will be much faster for the grubs through that, and they can go for 6 grubs. So it's also really in sync, it's really clean, really well played by them. Lee Sin doesn't have time to reset, I would say. He kind of has to go there pretty soon. Let's see what he does, maybe he does one more camp. And now also what's really smart, in general really good game by Impact by the way, like insanely good game by him. He TPs there to lose no tempo at all, because usually if he would he could also just walk there, but then he has no pressure here on the side on the map while they go for grubs. So this is also really good by him that he uses his TP like that. And now they are first on the grubs. And now if we look at the lanes again, because of this tempo advantage, they again had both lanes pushed in way earlier, and now they are faster at the grubs. So yeah, perfect game state for TL. And notice all of this is happening, goat lead, not really moving. It's basically the same all the time, and this is good for them, because this is basically a winning situation for them. If it just goes even the whole time, they win, because of their team comp. So they are really happy with that, and this is kind of what they want. So now the situation is a little bit different, because now you kind of used your tempo to get the grubs. So C9 had like a bit of time to get the wave in here while they did grubs and things like that, so they can't reset the same way they did earlier. So now they are a bit stuck, so let's see what they do. And now we see this is the first time in a couple of minutes where the normally stronger bot lane of C9 has the earlier reset, which is also quite spectacular. And they use this reset not for an objective or anything like that, they use it for an item spike. So they use it for the item spike. Lucian is the first one in this game who has his item completed, and this is something they usually want to play through. And what does TL do? They swap again away from this item spike. This is so good. And they can kind of predict this, because you would think, okay, why would they now use their tempo to just recall again? Well, it can only be for an item. It can only be for an item, so they avoid it again. if we look at the level here, basically from level 4 to level 8 they didn't lane. They didn't really lane. They basically just swapped around, or they had like a 3v2 lane when Lee Sin was bot. And meanwhile they also get platings as well most of the time, because they, or at least they have the possibility, because they have to push. So fantastic for them. They even got a small lead from all of this. They got every objective. 6 grabs with 6 is really dangerous. And now the game is really difficult for C9. So what are solutions for C9 in the game to kind of play against this? Because like this they don't achieve anything and they just get outscaled. So I think there are like 2 ideas you can go through. The first one is maybe with the Milio, you just swap only with the Milio, and then you have a situation where you have Milio and Na versus TL spot lane, and then maybe you can do something there because Na is already level 6 and they are still level 4 to 5, so maybe you can kind of get an advantage through that, for a short time at least, and also Lucian would get solo XP, which is also not too bad. But the problem with that, to be honest, is that that Lucian is really in danger then, because he can easily, it's not that easy for him to play against Udyr and Lee Sin together. So if they decide to kind of dive him or something like that, they could easily do that. So this is dangerous. Another possibility for them to kind of play against this is, I think, is they just don't swap. They just don't swap, and then they play for dragons and they play for the bot side jungle of TL, and they kind of just split the map completely. And I think this way is probably better. The thing is, normally if you get outscaled, you don't want to just trade objectives and trade gold, because then you also just go even in gold and you don't really progress the way you want. So usually it's something you do when you are behind. But I think in this game it's better because it gives you more opportunities. It gives you more opportunities to maybe dive. Also the Udyr, he can just go proxy farm then, because you have 3 people bot side. So it's just not really, or top side, depends on where he is at this point. But yeah, he can just proxy farm against that, so some of his strength is also gone. And also I think what's the most important point then is that you get the dragon and not TL, which means you get quite the early dragon. And if you get this kind of early dragon, you can play for dragon stacking, and it kind of gives you additional scaling versus their comp. And also, what this means is you actually can play fights better if you get to 3 dragons. Because at 3 dragons, if you get a good setup, then you can kind of get the position where, let's go back if we maybe get the dragon angle. Yeah, so you can kind of get a good position here, and then TL has to come into you basically to fight. So you don't need hard engage with your comp, you don't need like a Maokai or Rel or whatever they could have last picked. And because TL probably doesn't want to give the soul, they have to fight at some point. That's the thing with Dragon Soul, since it's implementation. And if they come into you, then it's way easier for Na to manage his Na bar and kind of get a good engage or a good flank or just a good fight. Because they come into you, you don't need hard engage. And it's just much easier for Orianna and for Na to play fights then. So maybe you can actually win then. So C9, they didn't do any of that. They just walked around and kind of followed TL in all of their plays. And the game kind of comes through this state, which is basically the last chance for C9 to really get a lead or any kind of advantage, which is the Herald. And they are, the first time in this game, they are first actually on an objective, as we can see, at least 4 of their members. But there are still some problems. And we're going to go over them really quickly. I think it's mostly on fudge, I would say. So the problem here is that Udyr, of course, he pushed again way quicker than Na, so he's already moving bot lane. So this is a problem. He's already basically there. And meanwhile C9 is really split up, and they know they want to fight here, because there won't be any more opportunities for that so soon, because they only have 1 dragon and not 2. So they really want to fight here. And I think Fudge, he should be aware of this. I think he is, because he's stacking his Naba, of course, so his Naba is going up pretty quickly here. And he also has TP, so he can actually join the fight. But then the timing gets really important. The timing gets really important because you can kind of predict that Udyr is already moving and will be there really quickly, so you have to be really crisp with your timing. This timing is just really not it. It's really not it. He's way too late, and then when he's there, he basically can't even do anything here. So yeah, complete disaster for C9 this fight, and then basically now the game is over. So if you look at, really shortly, if you can look at if maybe Fudge could have been there earlier, I think he could have been. So he has to stack his bar, so this is alright. So I think he knows what they want to do, to be honest. I think he also is looking for TPs. He also has a lot of opportunities to TP. So there are a lot of possibilities for him. But he's already stacked now. And let's say he doesn't predict Udyr to, or how quick Udyr is there. He sees him now, so at least at this point he can react. So at this point he should already TP, and then he would be there at like 15-1, which is because TP takes 4 seconds. And let's say he is there at 15-1, which would be now. Much better angle for him, much better angle. He could actually do something here. He can cut TL's bot lane completely off, and then Udyr is alone versus 3, and this is a completely different situation. And Blabber versus 6 alone with all his movement speed, no problem for him. So then they can actually fight, and the fight will be much closer if he's there now. So this would be a completely different situation. He also has flash, so he can really get in there. And if you look at it, he has this idea, we see it. Look at him, he is jumping in exactly at this point, but it's just too late. Because when he goes in there, they are already here. They are already here, it's way too late. So yeah. That was basically the last opportunity for C9 to do anything in this game. Didn't happen, and now the game is just basically over because the draft is, to be honest, it's really bad. But also they played their early game just not optimally, I think. They should have tried a couple of different things there, besides just following TL around. But to be honest, that's the thing I mean. The way TL played this was really insane. Like the way they used their tempo and the way they used their Udyr especially, it was really insane. It was really good. Impact had a spectacular game, I think. Yeah, I was really impressed by this. I'm going to watch LCS more just because of this game, to be honest. Even though for some people it might be boring to just see lanes swapping around and it's just 0-0 all the time. So, but yeah, after this, basically nothing is going to happen for C9 because they can force fights and they play against 6 grubs and 6. And basically all TL at this point has to do is play around the only engaged C9 has, which is Na, with his Naba. So basically you just wait it out until it's gone, and then C9 can't do anything, which we see multiple times in this game. Where they are just mid lane or something, and then they see him evolve into a Mega Na, and then they wait a couple of seconds, and then everything is free for them. This is basically how the rest of the game goes. If you enjoyed this video, feel free to comment, like, subscribe, whatever you feel like, and I will see you on the next one.